Hello, my name is Mel Ravens, and I will share with you my thoughts on the concept of doing it in fear. I remember a time when fear dominated each of my decisions. I was on the verge of the opportunity, trembling at the possibility of the Colombian's rejection, and delving into the unknown. But looking back at that stage of my life, I realized that fear was not my enemy, but a sign that guided me to growth and success. My grandfather, the angel of doing it with fear, transformed my life in ways that I never imagined, and today I want to share that story with you. Embracing the challenge. A moment of revealing was a cool '02 afternoon when I first understood that fear was holding me back. I had been offered the opportunity to lead a project at work, a project that I could elevate my career to new heights. However, while I was in my car, parked in front of the building where the meeting would take place, a familiar feeling, dread, seized me. My heart was beating hard, my palms were wet, and my mind was filled with endless and yes, what would happen if it weren't good enough? What would happen if I failed miserably? What would happen if I disappointed everyone? At that moment I was paralyzed by the doubt, but I remembered a simple truth. Fear is not a stop sign, but an indication that I am about to experience something meaningful. I breathed hondo. I gathered my courage and walked into that meeting room. That decision to move forward in spite of fear marked the beginning of a transformation that would change my life forever. The dance between fear and success. As I go through the first days of my career, I noticed a pattern every time I achieved something meaningful. There was a moment when fear was present, even when speaking to a large audience, by presenting a new idea, or by assuming a leadership role. Fear was always there. Was no that I was in the wrong mirror, but that I was coming out of my comfort zone. Ready? I understood that fear and success are intertwined. For every challenge he faced, there was a reward waiting for me on the other side, an inherent pattern of human experience. Each person recognized the one I admired had faced similar doubts and fears. I began to see fear not as an obstacle, but as a necessary partner in my profession towards success. Understanding my hesitation, I spent a lot of time reflecting on why I doubted. In some cases it was the fear of rejection. The idea of not being successful paralyzed me. There were times when perfectionism took hold of me, the belief that unless I could do something perfectly, should not have tried at all. This mentality led to endless procrastination and to an overwhelming feeling of, then there was imposter syndrome. Despite my achievements, a persistent voice in the back of my mind whispered that he did not deserve those opportunities. I felt like a fraud, an outsider in a world to which he did not seem to belong. And of course there was the comfort of the known. Family was safe but limiting. What it did, that what happened was even more terrifying. Sin embargo. Every hesitation was a manifestation of fear. By recognizing them, I understood that understanding my doubts was the first step. To overcome them, I began to challenge that negative voice, internal, and I recognized that these obstacles were not insurmountable, were rather opportunities to learn, grow up, and show myself what I was capable of. Epiphany. Do it with fear. A cool morning while enjoying a cup of cafe watching the sunrise, I had a revelation. I understood that the secret to overcoming fear was not to eliminate it completely, but to act in spite of it. It was then that the concept of doing it in fear took root in my life. I understood that fear would always be part of any company. It wasn't about fixing it, but to hug him. I decided that every time fear appeared, I would leave. That would drive my actions. Instead of breaking them, I pledged to acknowledge his presence and move forward anyway. Small big steps, jumps, implement. Do it with fear. I don't understand. From night to morning, I started little by little, breaking down intimidating tasks in manageable steps. Instead of contemplating the entire mountain of the challenge, I focused on the next immediate step. For example, when preparing a presentation, important, I started by simply my ideas. Then I went on to write a version, preliminary speech. Every little step was a victory, a testimony of my growing courage. I remember vividly when I was asked to speak at a local community event. The idea of facing a room full of toys, it was terrifying. My mind was filled with every form in which I could be ashamed, but I remembered my commitment to do it in fear, and I decided to move forward anyway. I spent weeks preparing myself, practicing and visualizing that the event would come out. Well, when the day came, I stepped on stage with my heart in a fist, determined to succeed in spite of fear. That day, I not only gave a speech that resonated with the audience, but I also understood that every step I took, I was getting closer to overcoming my fear, overcoming the paralysis of fear. There were times when fear became overwhelming, a weight that made that every decision seems insurmountable. I clearly remember a time of transition to a new career, the of the future, the risk of failure and the pressure to succeed. They combined in a paralyzing force that left me as if I were on the edge of an immense abyss. In those moments, I learned to fight fear, focusing on immediate and tangible actions. Instead of letting myself be by the sadness of change, I concentrated on the next step I needed to take. I could do something so simple: how to send an email, make a phone call, or update my resume. Divide the challenge into manageable parts allowed me to move forward step by step. Another crucial strategy was to practice self-compassion. I realized that my internal critic was severe, was doing more harm than good. Instead of scolding me for being afraid, I learned to treat myself with kindness. I reminded myself that fear is a normal human emotion, a natural part of any expectation of success. This self-pity helped to silence the negative voice and allowed me to concentrate on what I had. What to do? The visualization became a powerful tool. I spent time every day imagining myself succeeding and visualizing positive results, instead of focusing on the worst-case scenarios. This transformed my mentality, going from anguish to anticipation, transforming fear into fuel. One of the most transformative lessons I learned was that fear can become a powerful source of. Instead of seeing it as a barrier, I started to see it as fuel, a catalyst, to perfect my skills and take a chance. Every time I faced fear, reinterpreted it as a sign that it was about to grow. For example, when I was assigned launch a new business initiative, betting was high and the fear of rejection was immense. But I decided to take advantage of that fear. I channeled it into planning, in learning and preparation. I studied market trends, I sought advice from mentors, and practiced my presentations again and again. Every moment of doubt became a driving force that pushed me to work harder and intelligently. At the end, that initiative was not only successful, but it became a cornerstone of my professional growth. I celebrated every victory, no matter how small it was, as proof that overcoming fear strengthened my belief in my capabilities. A cycle of empowerment was created. Fear drove the action built confidence, and the confidence in that the challenges were less intimidating. The domino effect of my actions. To continue living under the premise of doing it in fear, I noticed a noticeable domino effect. My actions, driven by courage, began to generate changes, not only in my life, but in LA of those around me, amigos, colleagues, and even colleagues. I was told that my willingness to confront fear from the front inspired them to do the same. I remember a conversation with a close friend that fought against the doubt and the hesitation. I shared my experiences and the simple strategy, but powerful, to take small steps in spite of the fear, eventually via my friend, to flourish and become someone I was no longer afraid of, pursuing dreams that once seemed unattainable. That experience reinforced my conviction that courage is contagious. When you act bravely, you empower others to overcome their own fears and make bold decisions. This effect was also extended to my professional environment. In my workplace, when facing the challenges with an intrepid attitude, a dynamic and innovative atmosphere was created. Colleagues began to experiment, to take risks, and to collaborate more openly. The culture of fear that once held us back was slowly replaced by one of possibilities and growth, a living testimony to the power to do so in fear. Lessons learned and reflections on my profession. Looking back, I am flooded with sadness for my lessons. That fear taught me every moment of doubt and anxiety. It was an opportunity to get to know myself better. I learned that when he hugs and understands fear, can become a powerful ally, a sign that I was moving towards something meaningful. Success is not about not feeling afraid, but to choose to move forward in spite of it. The process of doing it in fear does not imply being in a constant state of courage. Is to understand that fear is natural, and that every act of courage brings you closer to your goals. A call to action embraces your own reflection. Today I would like to emphasize a crucial point. Fear is not the enemy. Is the key the next time you meet on the brink of a new challenge, and you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, remember that it is not a sign to withdraw. Is the sign that you are about to grow up, to enter a new chapter of your life. I encourage you to adopt the mentality of doing it in fear. Recognize your fear, but do not allow me to dictate your actions. Instead, let me boost your duration breaks down your challenges in small, manageable steps, and celebrates every victory in the desert. Replaces the shields and yeses for the emotion of possibilities. And remember that every time you choose to act, despite your fear, it is an act of true courage. The confrontation continues. For me, this trip has been a transformation. To be paralyzed by fear, to use it as a step towards success. I'm not saying it's easy. There are days when fear returns, sometimes even more intense than before. But every confrontation with fear makes me more stronger, more resilient, and better prepared for whatever comes next. As I continue to pursue my dreams, playing with me, lessons learned in every moment of doubt, and at every valiant event, I have come to understand that fear has no why stop us, can lead us to unbold achievements. Every time I take a step forward despite the fear of, I remember that I am capable, that I am resilient, and that I have the power to forge my destiny. Conclusion: a testimony to the power of courage. By sharing my story, I hope to inspire you to see fear in a new light, instead of being an unbeatable. Look at it like a lighthouse that illuminates the mirror to your greatest achievements. The power to do it with fear does not lie in the absence of fear, but in the disposition to act. Despite him, this mentality has brought me closer to my goals, has enriched my experiences, and has deepened my understanding of the life I present myself before you, as a testimony to the transforming power to embrace fear, a living example that every act of courage paves the to success. My journey is a continuous process of learning, growth, and overcoming fear, step by step. Invite you to join this. The next time that you feel that familiar chill of fear, take it as a sign that something important is about to happen. Embrace it, acts, and allows it to drive you into the future, full of opportunities for growth and realization. Remembers each valiant event, no matter how small it is, it contributes to the tapestry of your life. So go ahead and do it in fear. Takes a step forward even when fear whispers doubts in your ear. Let that fear fuel your determination, and watch it transform into the driving force behind your greatest successes. My story is proof that fear is not the enemy, is the key to unlocking your true potential. As I continue my smile with fear as a guide and motivator, I encourage you to do the same. Embrace your fears, learn from them, and allows them to take you to a life full of adventures, achievements, and unwavering courage. In the end, success is not about not being afraid, but in learning to dance with him. I need you to push ahead instead of stopping. And that, friend of mine,